Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now, the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl is between the Washington State Cougars and the Fresno State Bulldogs. Who do I think is going to win this game? Let's break it down. Now, Washington State is 7-5 and 4-5 in the Pac-12 this season, and Jake Dickert in his first full season as the head coach of the Washington State Cougars, he's done a pretty good job. He's had Washington State being really competitive in the Pac-12 this season, and they've had a pretty good season. And they beat Idaho in week 1, 24-17, and that was a good win. And then they won at Wisconsin 17-14. That was a great win. Then they beat Colorado State 38-7. Then they lost a heartbreaker to Oregon 44-41. Then they beat California 28-9. Then they lost at USC 30-14. Then they lost at Oregon State 24-10. Then they lost to Utah at home 21-17. Those were all tough losses there. But then they bounced back and won at Stanford 52-14. Then they beat Arizona State 28-18, and that was a good win. And then they won at Arizona 31-20, and then they lost to their rivals, the Washington Huskies, 51-33 at home in the final game of the regular season. Washington State still had a pretty good season. Yes, their performances were a bit up and down, but they did play well at times, and finishing at 7-5 is pretty good. And quarterback Cameron Ward, the transfer from Incarnate Word, was 298 of 465 this season for 3,094 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, and he had 5 rushing touchdowns. He's had a pretty good season. He was a little bit turnover prone earlier in the season, but as the season's gone along, Cameron Ward has definitely improved at quarterback, and he's played really well this season. And running back Nakia Watson, he has 130 carries for 736 yards and 8 touchdowns. He's a pretty good running back for Washington State, and they also have Jalen Jenkins at running back. He has 396 yards and a touchdown. So they've got a pretty good duo at running back. And the wide receiving core, Washington State has a pretty good wide receiving core, but wide receivers Deshaun Stribling and wide receiver Donovan Ollie are both in the portal, and wide receiver Renard Bell is injured. So their top wide receiver is going to be Robert Farrell in the bowl game. He has 46 receptions for 517 yards and 4 touchdowns. And running back Nakia Watson also has 290 receiving yards as well and 4 touchdowns. So Washington State, it hurts for them having several of their wide receivers not going to be playing in this bowl game. They still have a few good players that catch the ball. So if Washington State can handle not having their top wide receivers in this bowl game, their offense will still be pretty good. And on the defensive side of the ball, they have a couple of players that aren't playing in this bowl game. Either Dayan Henley at linebacker and Travion Brown at linebacker. Both of them are not playing. But they still have defensive back Jaden Hicks, who has 68 total tackles, 39 solo tackles, and an interception and a fumble recovery. And defensive back Armani Marsh has 61 total tackles and 42 solo tackles and an interception and a forced fumble. Washington State has good players on both sides of the ball on defense and offense, but having a few of the transfer portal and a couple of opt-out players is going to be kind of tough for them to overcome because it's some of their better players. But I still think Washington State will play pretty well without them. Now, on the Fresno State side, they're 9-4 and 7-1 in the Mountain West this season, and Jeff Tedford's done a great job at Fresno State in his second stint there as head coach. They've had a great season this year, and they've been playing fantastic football, and they even won the Mountain West Conference title game this year. And Fresno State beat Cal Poly in week 1, 35-7. That was a good win. And then they lost to Oregon State at home 35-32. That was a tough loss. Then they lost at USC 45-17. And then they lost at UConn 19-14. That was a tough loss. Then they lost at Boise State 40-20. And then they beat San Jose State 17-10. Then they won at New Mexico 41-9. Then they beat San Diego State 32-28. Then they beat Hawaii 55-13. Then they won at UNLV 37-30. That was a good win. Then they won at Nevada 41-14. And then they beat Wyoming 30-0. And then they beat Boise State in the rematch at Boise State in the Mountain West Championship game 28-16. And Fresno State had a great season at 9-4 and again winning the Mountain West. But the key here is that the games that they've lost this season, most of them were without quarterback Jake Haener. The only game that they lost when quarterback Jake Haener was healthy was the Oregon State game. But Jake Haener is a fantastic quarterback, and he makes a big difference for Fresno State's offense. This season, he's 228 of 314 for 2,616 yards, 72.6% completion percentage, 18 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. The backup, Logan Fife, only has 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So Fresno State's offense was much worse when quarterback Jake Haener was not in, but since he is playing in this bowl game, it gives Fresno State a much better chance to win. And running back Jordan Mims has had a great season as well. 243 attempts for 1,161 yards and 6 touchdowns. Fresno State has a fantastic running back, and he will be playing in this bowl game. And wide receiver Jalen Moreno-Cropper has 80 receptions for 1,051 yards and 5 touchdowns. And wide receiver Nico Remigio has 69 receptions for 768 yards and 5 touchdowns. Fresno State has a great offense, especially when Jake Haener is playing. Their offense is good on the ground and through the air. And on the defensive side of the ball, linebacker Lavelle Bailey has 82 total tackles, 50 solo tackles, and a forced fumble. And linebacker Malachi Langley has 62 total tackles, 36 solo tackles, and 2 interceptions. And Fresno State's defense has played well most of the season. Had a couple of games this season where they kind of struggled, but for the most part, Fresno State's defense has been really good, and Fresno State's offense is good as well. So who do I think is going to win the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl? The thing for Washington State is they've had a good season, and Jake Dickert's done a great job as the head coach, and they've really brought in some good players, and Cameron Ward especially at quarterback, and he's been playing better as the season's gone along. But Washington State has a few opt-outs on offense and on defense. I'm not saying that it's like Florida, where Florida has like 20 players opting out and in the portal, so your whole team's almost decimated. But the few players that are out will hurt Washington State a little bit in this game. And Fresno State has no opt-outs, and they only have a couple of transfer portal players, and both of them are not super significant. So that helps Fresno State out in this game. I think Washington State's going to play really well in this game. But the key here is that Fresno State has a great passing offense, especially now that Jake Haener's back healthy and he's going to be playing in this bowl game. And Washington State has struggled in pass defense this season, and that could be enough to tilt this game Fresno State's way. I'm going to go with Fresno State to beat Washington State in the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl 35-31. I think Washington State can win this game. Again, Jake Dickert's got a great team. Cameron Ward's been playing great this season, and Washington State's defense has improved a little bit as the season's gone along, but they do still struggle in pass defense. I think Washington State will be able to play well in this game without some of the players that are opting out and are in the portal. It's not too many players where they're not going to be able to play well, but it might be just enough for them to fall a little bit short. I think they still can win this game, but Fresno State with Jake Haener at quarterback, Jeff Tedford at head coach, they've been playing great in the second half of the season. Now that Jake Haener is healthy, he's back and he's playing better than ever. It's going to be really hard for Washington State's defense to stop him. If Fresno State can get whatever they want on offense, and Fresno State's defense, if they also play well, will be able to stop Washington State just enough. Even though Washington State's got a great offense, I think that Fresno State's defense will play just a little bit better than Washington State's defense, and I think Fresno State's offense will play a little bit better than Washington State's offense, and I think Fresno State's going to beat Washington State in the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl 35-31. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Washington State or Fresno State's going to win this bowl game and why, and I will see you next time.